started to read Romeo and Juliet for online learning. You may not be here at Act 3 yet, and that's totally fine. You're going to go through it at the pace you want. But I just wanted to create a video here. I've already showed you a couple others that Mrs. Childers made, just to supplement some of the reading that you're doing, because maybe some of this might be hard for you to fully grasp. So please keep using the side-by-side translation that's in your book or in the Spark Notes that I gave you. Watch the movie, and use those study guide questions to really help you get a firm understanding of what's going on, because it's kind of a complicated plot and there are a lot of characters to keep track of. So use your study guide questions and use the character chart and timeline that I've given you. So hopefully you've seen this previous two videos that Mrs. Childers made. Here's my summary and commentary about Act 3. Act 3, folks, it's a good one. This is when it really starts to, the plot really starts to pick up. It goes really fast, and there's some important takeaways at the end of it all. In fact, here's some help when you're filling out your timeline. Act 3, Scene 1 is the climax of the story. So before we get into Act 3, it's good to back up a little bit and go back to Acts 1 and 2. So let me lay the scene for you. You've already read this, but the play starts on a Sunday. And Sunday night, Romeo goes to the Capulet ball, which he sneaks into. He wears a mask. He's not supposed to be there. And he is looking for Rosalind, who he, quote-unquote, loves. But he sees Juliet, even though she's wearing a mask, and falls in love with her. Now, the problem with this, well, there's a lot of problems with that. One of the big ones is that Tybalt, who's Juliet's cousin and a Capulet, and he's kind of a fiery dude, he sees this happening, kind of from across the room, and he gets really, really upset. And he vows vengeance, and Capulet, Lord Capulet, Juliet's dad, Tybalt's uncle, actually has to calm him down and say, hey, this is a party, no fighting here, all right? Pick up your beef later. So later that night, Romeo and Juliet talk on the balcony, and one thing leads to another, and then they're engaged. Okay, so they meet like 2 hours ago, and now they're engaged. Very cool. The next morning, with the help of a well-meaning, I think, friar, but he's so misguided because, I mean, come on, what man in his right mind should be helping an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old get married and they met the night before? That makes no sense. This guy's totally irresponsible. But anyway, he facilitates the marriage. He's a friar. Friar is another word. He's a priest, so he can facilitate the marriage, and he does it. They get married Monday morning. Talk about speed dating. So scene 1 is Monday afternoon. It's the afternoon of the same day that Romeo and Juliet get married, and Mercutio and the Montagues are hanging out, and then all of a sudden, here come the Capulets. They're ready to fight. And Tybalt announces that he's looking for Romeo. Where's Romeo? I need to fight Romeo. And him and Mercutio kind of like jaw at each other and talk crap. And then Romeo shows up, and Tybalt says, okay, here he is. I'm going to fight him. And Romeo says something along the lines of, hey, why are we going to fight? We're related now. We're cousins. Or, I just married your cousin. And then they fight. Well, before they fight, Mercutio and Tybalt fight each other. Those are hot-headed dudes. And there's some interpretations here, but the most common way this is portrayed is that Romeo steps in to separate them from fighting, and while they're separated, Tybalt kind of leans over and stabs Mercutio, kills him. He runs away right after that, and Romeo, after he sees that Mercutio dies, follows Tybalt, catches up to him, fights him, stabs him. It's all over. Romeo just killed Juliet's cousin. They kind of all run away, and the prince shows up just like he did the previous day. I mean, you got to really feel for this prince, right? Like the day before, he had to come up and break up a fight, and he says, hey, no more fighting, and if you fight, someone's going to pay the price, right? They're going to be executed. And then the very next day, the same parties come and do the exact same thing, and you imagine the frustration. Well, to add on to that frustration, to make matters even worse, it turns out that Mercutio is actually related to the prince somehow. They're relatives. And when he finds out that Mercutio was killed, he is understandably very, very upset. And he asks Benvolio, hey, what happened here? And Benvolio does a pretty good job of telling the truth. He says, well, Tybalt tried to fight, Tybalt killed Mercutio, and then Romeo killed Tybalt. And the prince is like, well, on one hand, I told you guys not to fight. On the other hand, Tybalt killed my relative, so the person who killed him, really, it wouldn't make any sense to execute him. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to banish Romeo. So instead of executing Romeo, the prince agrees to banish him to a city called Mantua. There's some problems here, isn't there? Kind of while this, right after this is happening, in a pretty frustrating scene, the nurse comes to Juliet and says, and basically just says, he is dead. Right after they talk about, kind of coordinating the plan for Romeo to come meet her. Romeo plans on ascending a ladder into her window and spending the night with her. And the nurse says, he's dead. And Juliet thinks that she is talking about Romeo. And she, starts to sob. And then they talk a little longer. And it finally comes out that Juliet, or that the nurse is talking about Tybalt. All right? So Tybalt is dead, not Romeo. And Juliet, while sad because it's her cousin, has a sigh of relief. Like, oh, thank God, it's only my cousin who died, not my husband. Thank you. And then they continue their plans to meet with Romeo. So, kind of in a foil scene, scene 3 of what's next is that Romeo goes back to Friar Lawrence. He's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got to kill myself, right? There's the only way out of this. I got to kill myself. And Friar Lawrence, in a rare moment of clarity from this guy, gives this big, long monologue about how Romeo's being stupid. Hey, kind of slaps him out of it. What are you doing? What are you talking about? Killing yourself. Why don't you just, go to Mantua, or go meet with Juliet tonight, see her one more time, leave before dawn, and then you're going to go to Mantua. You'll be banished for a little bit, but my guess is the prince is going to let you come back pretty soon. So just wait till everything calms down, everything blows over, and you can come back, right? Because he has a feeling that the prince isn't really that mad because Romeo, killed the guy who killed the prince's cousin. Got it? Scene 4, pretty short. Lord Capulet, who's Juliet's dad, meets with Paris and says, hey, Paris, why don't you marry my daughter? And he's like, okay, cool, that sounds great. And then they kind of had this weird exchange where he's like, what day is it today? It's Monday? Wednesday's too soon. Why don't we set the date for Thursday? Thursday, that's a good day. That'll be a good time for Juliet to get married. Disregard that my nephew just died and our family's grieving. I think Thursday's a great day for a wedding. So that's the time they set up. Okay. And then what's more important in scene 4 is what happens in between 4 and 5. And that is that Romeo sneaks into Juliet's bedroom and they spend the night together for the first time as husband and wife. Romeo has to leave before dawn, and he does. That's what happens in scene 5. He says some parting words and he leaves, and off to Mantua. Right as he's leaving, Lady Capulet comes in and tells Juliet the plan to marry Paris on Thursday. And Juliet, as you can imagine, is not super happy about that. She is married already. So according to these very devout Catholics, getting married to somebody while you're already married isn't just wrong, it's quite a sin. And she loves Romeo, so why would she get married to somebody else? The problem is that Lady and Lord Capulet don't know that Juliet is already married. So what is she going to do? She does what any 13-year-old girl would do in this situation and throws a temper tantrum, basically. And in this scene, it's kind of lost unless you read it, but you really, for the first time, get to see how young Juliet is. The way she talks and the way she communicates reminds you of a little girl. And you have to remind yourself that, oh yeah, she is, right? She's a child. And they have this big argument, you can imagine an argument between parents and their child, and Lord Capulet basically comes in and says, okay, you know what, if you don't want to get married to Paris, you ungrateful brat, then I'm going to disown you. So either you show up to the wedding on Thursday or you're not my daughter anymore. And she says, well, you know what, you're going to have to make room in Tybalt's crypt. A crypt is a place where they put where they bury people, dead people. You're going to have to make room in Tybalt's crypt for me because I'm going to be there next. I'm not going to get married. Basically, she's saying she's going to commit suicide. And that's where we're at after Act 3. You can see there's a lot of problems going on here. It's yet to be seen how this is going to resolve itself. Romeo is gone. He's been banished. Tybalt is dead. And now Juliet is being forced to marry somebody in like 2 days, even though she's already married. So just as a kind of a wrap up, this act really more than the other acts really hammers home a couple themes here. And that one is just the immaturity of young people. Starting from the fight scene, if you read it, you can see Mercutio and Tybalt are just like playing around and insulting one another and kind of jabbing one another like friends might do. And then they start to fight, and then due to some circumstances, one of them dies. And Romeo, he's all mad about this because he just saw his best friend be killed. He runs up and he kills Tybalt too, right? So it's a lot of rashness, hot-headedness, a lot of fighting going on. We go back to our theme of, and I didn't put it on here, but back to our theme of good things happen during the night and bad things happen during the day. This fight in Act 3, Scene 1 takes place in the middle of the day. Noon, it's hot, they fight. And then that night is when Romeo and Juliet finally get to spend a night together as husband and wife, right? It's tender, it's loving, okay? All that kind of stuff. It's a lot of bad decisions. And you know what? I'm not a Friar Lawrence apologist here, okay? It starts there. It starts with Friar Lawrence. You gotta take away his ability to marry people after this one, right? He is not a rational dude either, right? So he makes the bad decision of marrying the two teenagers behind their parents' backs. Juliet does the same thing, right? She agrees to it. Romeo agrees to it, but who do you really put the blame on here? Do you put the blame on the 13-year-old girl, the 18-year-old boy who wants to marry the 13-year-old girl, or the adult who makes it all possible? Okay? Mercutio makes a bad decision by fighting Tybalt. Tybalt makes a bad decision by killing Mercutio. Romeo makes a bad decision by getting revenge. It could be argued that Capulet makes a bad decision by promising Juliet to Paris before he knows all the details, and in like 2 days. And you can really see in this act, the act starts on Monday afternoon with a fight and ends very early on Tuesday morning. A lot of stuff happens. I mean, you can back up to the very beginning of the play. We started on a Sunday morning, and now we're 3 acts in, and it's a Tuesday morning. All this stuff is happening really, really fast, okay? So please keep reading. Let me know what kind of questions you have about the play, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right, thanks for watching.